just getting myself set up. I can honestly say that I can't believe that Thanksgiving is this week. I don't know if any of you feel that way. Yes? It just continues to blow my mind as I continually have that realization. We're having conversations of Christmas. Our lists are long. Our lives are full. And so I hope today, as we're gathered here together as a community, that we're able to just let that go. To not be distracted by our lists and by what's happening in our kitchens this week or in our families, but that we could really be here in the presence of Jesus. Believe it or not, we are actually about to end our Uniquely Gifted series. We have one more week, which just continues again. I can't believe how fast time's going. I was very sad to miss last week as Pastor Dave brought us the word as we learned about giving. But I was with my teens last week, so although I missed all of you very much, it was great to be with my teens at fall retreat. It was an amazing time. We went to Windsor Hills. We just got to hang out and listen to really, really loud music. And it was loud. There were teens in the hallway. That's how loud it was. And just hang out and play games. And it was just a wonderful time to be together. Before I get too off topic, though, we are going to be looking at another set of spiritual gifting today. As Pastor Sam and Pastor Dave and myself were shaping out what Uniquely Gifted was going to look like, we really wanted you to hear from different voices as we looked at that. And so as we divvied out systematically, we tried at least, the different spiritual gifts we'd be talking about, at the end of the day, I got two. One was leading, and the other of serving, which was pretty ironic to me because I feel like those are on completely different ends of the spectrum. And as I was preparing for both of them, I was like, God, what? Couldn't you give me something related? Like, at least I could help myself out a little bit, you know? But, like every assumption that I have made about ministry or about how God is going to work something out, He seems to smile at me and pat my head a little bit and do something completely different, which I am always amazed at, as He just continues to reveal Himself to me, and I hope as well to you. Has that ever happened to anyone? Yeah. So the spiritual gifting we're going to be talking about today is leadership, which seems pretty straightforward to me because if you have a spiritual gifting of leadership, what do? You lead. Yes, thank you, Mona. That's my team. You lead. Maybe you fill the role as a pastor or a ministry leader here at this church. Maybe you are the SDMI president, NMI president, head usher, whatever that may look like. You lead. Maybe within your own family, you are a leader. You are a mom or a dad. Maybe in your workplace, you fill the role of leadership. Maybe you are a business owner. You own a company, you're a CEO. You hold some sort of management position. We have leaders all around us. And I think, honestly, we all lead in some way, so I don't think any of us are off the hook today as we talk about this gift of leadership. Within our world, I think we often hear the phrasing of climbing the ladder. Those that are in places of leadership are typically the loudest in the room, the most cutthroat. They put in long hours and probably too many hours. I know I'm guilty of that sometimes. Maybe we know leaders that have the right connections. I know when we look at males versus females, a male leader is usually someone that's strong, he's well dressed, while a woman leader is usually someone that's pretty bossy. I know I've been accused of that, and I wear it with pride. No, I'm just kidding. But as I'm describing this, and as I was thinking through this, I continually wondered, is this what Jesus intended for leadership? Is this what He embodied in His own leadership? Did He push people aside, or did He have the loudest voice in the room? We're going to dive into a passage to really see what Jesus was envisioning for leadership and the gifting of leadership and how he intended his people, the kingdom of God, his church, our church, to embody leadership. So would you stand with me today as we open up to Luke chapter 22, verses 24 through 30. That's Luke chapter 22, verses 24 through 30. Also, as a dispute arose among them as to which of them was considered to be the greatest, Jesus said to them, "The kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who exercise authority over them call themselves benefactors. But you are not to be like that. Instead, the greatest among you should be like the youngest, and the one who rules like the one who serves. For who is greater, the one who is at the table or the one who serves? Is it not the one who is at the table? But I am among you as the one who serves. You are those who have stood by me in my trials, and I confer on you a kingdom, just as my Father conferred on me, so that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel." Let's pray. Jesus, this morning we just come before you, and as we're listening to your words, would you just open our minds and our hearts? Would you give us a gentle spirit? Would you speak words of honesty to us, even when it's uncomfortable? Jesus, would you just let us be in your presence this morning? Would you help us to put aside what we came in with today? And would you just speak to us? We love you in your name. Amen. You may be seated. Before we even dive into this passage, I thought it would be great to set the scene. And I think that comes from my theater background of always wanting to know, well, what's going on? Or maybe I'm just nosy and I need to know it. So today I want us to figure out what is going on right here in this passage. Well, we're clearly walking into the middle of a tense situation. A dispute broke out. A fight broke out. In the book of Luke, we have just walked into the scene of the Last Supper, where Jesus shares his last meal with his 12 disciples, the 12 people that he is closest with, his best friends. He has journeyed with them. This is where Jesus predicts his own betrayal, that one of his disciples, one of those best friends, will soon commit. And when he tells Peter that he will deny him not once, but 3 times. What I found really ironic here is a fight breaking out among his disciples of who is the greatest, who is the best, who is the best leader. And the verse before it, Jesus says, one of you is going to betray me. And in the next breath, the disciples are like, well, I'm the greatest, so it couldn't be me. I found this so odd. Because I think if one of my closest friends had accused me of betraying them, I don't think my first words would be, well, I'm the greatest. I don't know though, I wasn't in their shoes. Jesus quickly responds to them, explaining what it is really like to be the greatest. He first mentions the kings of the Gentiles because in this time period, that would be their reference. That's their example of greatness of leadership. The Gentile kings, they sought power and status over anyone or anything. They were our politicians. That gives us some frame of reference here. They were in an ultimate power struggle of who is the greatest, those Gentile kings. And so what Jesus is saying here is that he's saying, I know where you come from. I know this world. I walk with you. I am also from that example. You need to not be like the leaders of this world, of your world, of our world. This is not what it looks like to be the greatest. But instead, forget status. When Jesus refers to this idea of being the youngest, because the youngest in the room would have no status. And so that's what that reference is right there. The child in the room would have no importance or status. But he says, no, I'm telling you, be like that child. Forget status. Status does not hold importance in my kingdom. Jesus, in these moments, he's calling for faithfulness. He is reshaping and casting a vision, a new type of community. A community or a kingdom that is shaped around serving and humility. One that puts the other first. That even in the midst of being leaders, we are true servants of Christ. I recently had the opportunity to go to assessment weekend. For those of you that are not familiar with the Church of the Nazarene, when a pastor is pursuing ministry, they go through different levels of ministry and interviewing processes. I don't know what that's right. I am currently working towards my district licensing, and so through that process, I had the opportunity to go to a weekend-long interview, I think is basically the way to explain it. My husband and I, we both went. And it's a long and tiring weekend because you go from one set of interviews to the next, and they ask you very personal questions. You leave no rock unturned. So as you can imagine, as we're prepping for this weekend, I was starting to get a little anxious, and I didn't really know why. But it was also really amazing. Because these leaders that interviewed us, because of the level of intimacy that they call for, the level of transparency that they call for, they knew me. And they knew my heart, and they knew my husband and mine, our hearts, for ministry and for the kingdom of God. And so while we were there, we got to shape and got to just dream about, what is God doing in his kingdom today? What is he doing in mine and Sam's life, in our marriage, in our family? What is he doing here at South Weymouth Church of the Nazarene? And so it was just a really wonderful weekend to just be a part of that community of new pastors moving on to district licensing. On the first night we arrived, we met in a conference room where we shared a meal together and started our first set of meetings and trainings. Before they really put us into the heavy stuff, they thought they'd started off light. And so one of the leaders stood up and he said, okay, well, I want you to go around the room and I want you to give your name, where you're from, your leadership position, and then he said, he just started doing this with his hands. And you know when you're in one of those meetings, like a get to know you meeting, you're like, oh no, what's he gonna say next? And he's like, something embarrassing. Something really embarrassing. And then as he finally shaped it, he said, for our new pastors, I'm not going to make you say something embarrassing, but I want you to say, what would be the most embarrassing thing for you, I'm getting tongue-tied. What would be the most embarrassing thing to happen to you at the pulpit? And so all of us are like, oh my word. And he's like, for our ministry leaders that are more seasoned, you need to actually say what the most embarrassing thing is to happen to you at the pulpit. So as you can imagine, it was very funny. We got to hear some embarrassing stories that happened to other pastors of the pulpit. For those of you that are curious, as it got to me, I said my name. Hi, I'm Pastor Kayla. I'm from South Weymouth Church of the Nazarene. I'm the pastor of youth and small groups. And I think if I were to have an embarrassing moment at the pulpit, it would be some sort of wardrobe malfunction. That just seems the most mortifying to me. Soon later, seasoned pastor then said, Well, you know what you thought would be the most mortifying? It happened to me, and it was horrible. So, it was just fun. It was so fun to get to know each of our pastors. One of our leaders, though, who was a lead pastor at one of our churches on our district, I'm not going to give his name away, I had the opportunity to have a conversation with him before our meeting started, and I had known him from other meetings and just district assembly. And he is just a man after God's own heart. He is a listener. He is soft-spoken, but also firm in what he believes. He feels God's convictions in his life and in God's kingdom very strongly. And as he said his name, I expected, like the rest of the pastors did, to say what his position at his church was, but he didn't say that. He said, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm the lead custodian of the people of his church." I thought, what? First of all, do you clean the church? But that really stopped me in my tracks. The lead custodian? But you're the lead pastor. I have to be honest that I too have fallen into the need and the desire to continue to move up the ladder. I know I'm not alone in that today in this room. When I was in college, as my friends and the other students in the religion and the Christian ministry department were getting ready to graduate, we were all putting out our resumes and trying to hear God's call in our life. And I saw so many of my friends being called to different churches, but not me. And I thought, God, what the heck? I studied with them too. I was in the trenches with them too. I've done the internships. I've done the time. All I want to do is I want to serve you. Is that so much to ask? But my call didn't come as soon as some of my friends did. And looking back on that, it was just God's perfect timing. He orchestrated it and arranged it in such a beautiful way. And I had the opportunity through other jobs that I was a part of to really learn and be shaped by that. And I can talk about that at a different time because it's a whole different story. But I too have fallen into that need of wanting to hold some sort of status. But this lead pastor at assessment weekend didn't refer to himself as the lead pastor or was concerned about status or anything. And his humility just left me in awe. I had a professor at Nazarene Theological Seminary, and I got to go out there this past March. And this guy is like the guy in the Church of the Nazarene. He has helped shape theology within our church. And I just sat in that classroom just hanging on his every word. And people had so many questions for him. And he stood up just like this at the lectern and he said, "I just want to be honest with you. I don't have answers for your questions, but I'm going to comment." And that one sentence just totally changed how I looked at theology and teaching, because we don't always have all the answers. But this guy, the guy of the Church of the Nazarene, Dr. Thomas Noble, who everyone thinks he's got the answers. He's written all the books. He's read the commentaries. He's done it all. I'm not going to answer your questions. I'm just going to comment. Back to this lead pastor. He was the lead custodian. I mean, do we know what custodians do? Being a custodian is not a glamorous job. They work after hours, they work long hours. You don't normally see them. They go unnoticed. They clean messes and fix things that people don't even know need to be fixed. They clean up vomit and nasty things. They make sure everything is tidied up after a long day of people working in an office or school. And so when you come back, it's pristine. They receive very little recognition for their work. And this is what Jesus is talking about here. He's saying, I get that your world tells you one way to be a leader. And you know what? I get it, because I too have been tempted by status. If you know the story of Jesus being tempted in the wilderness for 40 days, he was given the opportunity to rule everything. Satan said, here, you can have it all. And Jesus said, no. Because that's not what my Father's calling me to do. That's not what the kingdom is calling me to do. And that just amazes me. And so here Jesus is saying, I get it. I too have seen the possibilities, but that is not what the kingdom of God is calling us to do. If we want to be the greatest, the best, if we want to be true leaders, it looks like laying down the importance and status and embracing this new vision of the greatness, leadership, being those who serve others. It's saying, Jesus, I have all these hopes and desires in my life. I have all these passions. I have these things that I want to be striving towards. But Jesus, today, I'm just going to hand all of them over to you. Because I just want to serve you. Because my status, my worth is not found here on this earth. It's found in you. Because most times, service doesn't look pretty. It's not glamorous, and that's okay. Sometimes, it looks like putting in the long hours and just really caring for our people and the people of this world. It looks like putting others before yourself. My leaders today, would we be reminded that our leadership is not about status, it's about service. It's about humility. It's about Jesus. It's not about climbing the ladder, but about not being afraid to really have our feet on the ground and loving and serving and being obedient to Jesus' leadings. If you feel like Jesus is calling and talking to you this morning about serving him and being a true servant of him, I just want to open up the altar this morning as we close. If you just want to meet with him today, if you want to be in his presence today, if you need to say to him, I put myself first too much, then I invite you to come and to pray. Let's pray.